Hello, everyone, and welcome to Prevail Answers. We're Prevail Innovative Wealth, your corporate retirement plan financial advisor. With us today, Tom Wright. Tom's been with our company for many years, tremendous experience in the 401k space, and has a lot of experience helping individuals understand the specifics within their plan. Something very unique to your plan, we have Holly Cantrell. Holly is our participant engagement coordinator. She would love to reach out to you, help you with beneficiaries, allocation changes, what's going on with your account, and making sure that you understand all of the great enhancements that have come along with your plan. Our main presenter today, Jesse Hernandez. The reason Jesse is our main presenter today is Jesse spent over 20 years at Voya Financial as the regional vice president, and your plan has been enhanced with Voya Financial. We're going to go over all the great enhancements, all the wonderful thing that your employer did to make your plan even better for you. Today's topic, be good to yourself. This is about placing dollars into your retirement plan so you can have the retirement that you've always wanted. Thank you for spending about 15 to 20 minutes with us today. We hope you enjoy the presentation and be good to yourself. Jesse?
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, team. Well, we'll go ahead and jump right in here. And as you can see from our introduction today, we've already covered part of the agenda. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about your retirement plan benefits. We'll look at your sources that your plan typically allows. We're going to go a little bit into your investment strategies and help you identify your investment personality. And now, if you get an employer match or employer dollars, maybe what you might want to think about once you hit your match. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. Let's talk a little bit about why your employer plan is one of the primary places for you to save for retirement. And really it starts first with identifying two key enemies to your dollars. One is taxes and the other is inflation. Tom, why don't you tell us a little bit about key reasons why inflation can hurt what you're trying to build?
Well, one of the problems you have with inflation, Jesse, obviously, is the fact that it erodes purchasing power. You might look back at a stamp that you had many, many years ago. It was an 8-cent stamp. Now it costs like 75, 80 cents to mail a letter. I don't know about you, but my writing ability hasn't improved that much, but it's cost that much more to do that. So if your dollars aren't growing and outpacing inflation, you're going to have a real problem when it comes to retirement, Jesse.
Thank you, Tom. So inflation, as Tom said, is really eating away at your earning power. And let's give you a primary example of this. What you see here is actually two menus. One, a faded menu from the early 70s, and one, a more contemporary one. And when you think about going out for a nice steak dinner, wherever you're located at, start thinking about what those prices cost today. We've all seen how inflation has impacted the cost of food. Here we have a 8-ounce filet, and depending on where you're at, a 6 to 8-ounce filet typically is going to run you $40 to $50. Oftentimes that's a la carte. And what we have here is a faded menu from the early 70s. It's actually my wife. Her grandfather owned an Italian restaurant in Kansas City called Vitale's. Now, their filet mignon, which was 14 ounces with sides, was $2.95. So think about that. The dollars you're putting in today and that you're earmarking for tomorrow have to, at the very least, keep up with inflation, but the reality is we want them to outpace inflation. And you could do that with other food items. What we also want you to think about is what you're going to need to live on. So we have a tremendous partnership with Morningstar, globally renowned for research and data analytics. And what you see here is really kind of the median retirement savings balances for participants based on their age, the column on the left. What does that mean by median? It means we've kicked out the people who've saved a tremendous amount over the average and those who have undersaved. And what you can see is by the time you get to your 60s and 70s, you're sitting at about, on average, $150,000 in your retirement. So you need to annualize that, think about how long that will last you, and whether that's going to be enough. Unfortunately, we find that 54% of retirees say that Social Security is going to be their primary source of income, and about 20% of that 54% will be relying solely on Social Security. So here's a tremendous asset, a tremendous opportunity for you to grow something beyond just Social Security. So let's talk about some of the key benefits of your retirement plan. What makes it different than an IRA, a CD, a checking account, or savings? And number one, you have control. You get to choose how much you want to put in, and you get to choose where you're going to invest it. Number two, it's automatic. And when something happens automatic, it comes out of sight and out of mind, and eventually just part of your lifestyle. So you get to automate your savings, and it comes out and is deducted from your paycheck automatically. Then you get to invest it your way. We all know the burger joint company that says, have it your way. You get to have it your way. You get to decide whether you want to do it yourself, whether you'd like a little bit of help, or whether you'd want it done for you. But no matter what strategy you pick, you get to define the investment strategy that really fits your investment personality. And finally, depending on your retirement plan, you may have an employer match that's built to match your dollars that you're putting in. It may also have a profit sharing, so you will want to check your enrollment notification or your plan design that's built into your employer notification to see if you also have additional dollars coming from your employer. That will make it a significant difference from what you might find in an IRA or a savings account or a CD. Tom, why don't you come up for just a second? What we're showing here is 3 different buckets of where people traditionally are allocating their dollars. And what's interesting is the percentage figures, right or wrong, is where most dollars are today. So Tom, why don't you kind of define where people put their money today and maybe some of the advantages of those?
Well, obviously, Jesse, the thing that most people have done all these years is doing something tax deferred. Everybody jumped on the idea of, hey, let's not pay taxes today. Let's save that money, and we'll worry about that tax thing down the road. We've done a really good job of that because a lot of people figured, I'll be in a lower tax bracket when I get to retirement. But we're finding that not to be quite the case. One of the reasons why, we've got so much money building up in this bucket of pre-tax that when Uncle Sam says it's time to take money out, he's going to be your best friend. And his cousin, state taxes, will be right there with him. One of the things we advocate is trying to figure out how to build other buckets for savings for that future need when it comes to retirement. Find a bucket that's more like your emergency fund, more of a taxable situation. And then obviously the Roth idea. Most retirement plans these days have the Roth option. The advantage, money goes in after taxes, but when it all comes out, even the gain comes out tax-free. And Jesse, tax-free dollars are bonus dollars.
Excellent. So we talked a little bit earlier about really kind of those 2 enemies to growing your retirement vision or dream that you might have. And so Tom hit very well on the taxable dollars as well as what we talked about earlier, which was inflation. So again, with that pre-tax advantage, let's talk a little bit about what that means to you and your plan. You can put it in pre-tax or you can put it in Roth. Pre-tax is going to lower your taxable income. Roth, on the other hand, is going to grow tax-free, and you're never going to pay taxes on the money you earn. 2 significant ways that you can put it in. And I would say traditionally, we saw most dollars go in pre-tax. Now we're seeing more and more people taking advantage of that Roth. So Holly, why don't you come up for just a second, and why don't you share with us, you work a lot with participants. They call you a lot. Sometimes they're asking about which source they should put their dollars in. So for the pre-tax or Roth, why don't you talk about who the Roth might be a better fit for?
Absolutely. So typically, if you're earning about, under 100,000, maybe early mid-career, kind of on the rise, Roth might be a better idea. And with that, it's got to be 5 years at least from your first Roth contribution date for earnings to be tax-free. Just kind of reassures you're going to reach that 5-year minimum. It also helps, with some legacy planning options as well. So that is when Roth might be an ideal option for you.
Great. And as Holly said, legacy planning just means that you can actually pass those on to your children, your grandchildren, and those Roth tax dollars will continue to grow. So while it's typically going to be for somebody earning under 100,000 and in a lower tax bracket, or somebody younger, you might be in a higher tax bracket, but thinking about utilizing it for legacy planning. Now, additionally, how about your pre-tax source?
All right, so pre-tax runs a little different. So these are for your higher earners, folks who are, past that mid-career point to late career or nearing retirement, and they're needing to kind of bring down that tax liability every paycheck. So those folks are typically in the higher tax bracket, 32% or more. It does maximize your take-home pay, whereas Roth kind of takes away from your net pay.
Thank you, Holly. So again, that's an opportunity for somebody high net worth. They want to lower their taxable income today. Maybe they don't think they'll be spending as much in retirement tomorrow. And so if you're not sure which way to go, here's the great thing. You can do both. You can determine the percentages you want to do in each of those sources, and you can determine through Voya's pre-tax or versus a Roth calculator actually how those numbers work. And surprisingly, I've been out on that calculator before. Up until about your 50s, it's going to really help the person who's doing the Roth more than the pre-tax in terms of overall earnings over time. So let's talk a little bit about investments for you and investment strategies, how to kind of match up who you are and what you're going to be comfortable with as you choose to invest. So as we mentioned before, you can have it your way. There's 3 different ways in which you can do this. You can do it yourself, you can look to get help, or you can have it done for you. And so, I think all of us on our team, we do some traveling. We've turned into kind of some foodies. We enjoy the food analogy. So let's give you one for your plan. You have your own funds you can pick from. You have a target date option, and you have the ability to use managed accounts. So with the do-it-yourself, that's somebody who potentially, to give you the analogy, is going to cook their own dinner. They're going to pick from a recipe that they've discovered. They're going to do the research. They're going to decide at the store what they want to get. They're going to cook it up. And oh, by the way, if they make a mess or they burn it, it's theirs to clean up. That's sometimes how it can be when you're picking your own funds. If you want some help doing it, you can utilize a target date strategy. These are typically the qualified default in your plan, and they're really built for really mass assembly. I look at them a lot like going to the local burger joint, and you're going to order the number 7, and every time you go to the window, you're getting your bacon cheeseburger, your Coke, and your fries. It's easy, it's convenient, and hey, who doesn't like a good burger? So it might be a good fit for you. But finally, you have the managed account option. With the managed account option, it does cost you a little bit more, but you can utilize the managed account option, and professionals will actually pick which investments you should be in. Create about 580 plus underlying portfolios they might customize and choose for you. And the advantage of that is that you're getting professional help where you can actually bring in outside assets, and it will calculate that as well for you. And what we have found is people who utilize the managed accounts tend to put in more, which ultimately is going to affect your retirement dollars. They tend to be better diversified and better allocated. They tend to hold in down markets knowing that the professionals are watching it. And as a result, historically, net of fees, they've had more in retirement. So you can choose to do it yourself. You can choose to pick a target date fund that you're matching by your date of birth and when you're going to retire, or you can choose to have it managed for you. Cook your own dinner, go through the drive-through, or have a nice meal out. And so with that, when you talk about doing it yourself, let's get into these into a little bit more detail. Tom, why don't you come up, and when we look at picking your own funds and providing yourself a diversified allocation, you're talking about looking at this risk-reward chart and determining which and how much goes into each of these asset classes. So why don't you review that a little bit with us?
One of the things people need to look at when they're doing that kind of a do-it-yourself is kind of what is your temperament? What kind of risk can you take? What do you feel comfortable with? When you pick and choose your own funds, you also have to remember what's your timeline. Somebody who's in their early 20s has a longer run than somebody who's just close to retirement. If you're close to 65, you're probably not going to be doing a whole lot of stuff that's very risky. Why is that? You haven't got the time to make up the difference. So when you start to look at how you're going to allocate your funds for yourself, you want to take into a couple of factors. How much time do I have? How much time can I put my money in? And how much risk do I feel comfortable with? And Jesse, we've seen a lot of people who think taking risk is the best way to go, only to get hurt in the long run.
Tom, that's great. When we define risk, keep in mind you have short-term risk and long-term risk. So this is showing your risk chart, and this is showing your potential reward. Keep in mind that if I'm in something like cash, it's very safe. So if I'm close to retirement and I don't want a lot of volatility, that's a great place. But if I'm in my 20s, its inability to outpace inflation could affect it over time. Same thing with your potential reward. Although you're going to have a lot of short-term volatility that you might not be comfortable with if you're near to retirement, if you're a younger investor, that's actually an opportunity for you to dollar cost average, continue to purchase in, and an opportunity for a greater reward over time. So next, let's look at our target date funds. We talked a little bit about this, and utilizing this approach, it allows you to choose a target date fund that's closest to when you plan on retiring. So you set it by age. It starts typically aggressive for younger investors, and it ages with you. So as you get closer to retirement, you'll get a more and more conservative balance. And then finally, our managed accounts, as we talked about, your managed accounts are going to give you the opportunity, if you want, to have the professionals do it for you. You're going to get personalized advice, ongoing monitoring, ongoing account management. So when the market's up dramatically or down dramatically, you know that somebody's steering the ship. So now, once you've hit that match potentially, or if your employer is adding dollars to your account, let's talk a little bit about what we want to do once we've hit that. And Tom, you've seen this quite a bit. Why don't you come up for just a second? What are some of the things you can do if you want to follow the strategy of staying in the plan or potentially looking outside the plan?
One of the things people look at a lot of times is I've already got to where I need to be to get the full match. I had to put in 5 to get 4, but I want to save more money than that. What are my options? Obviously, you can put more money in the plan, either on the pre-tax or after-tax. One of the things we like to talk about is some of those outside opportunities. Gives you a little bit more liquidity, gives you a little bit more flexibility as what investments you choose from, and accessing those funds may come into hand a little easier than what's in the 401k plan. You can take advantage, Jesse, of a lot of different things out there that might be beneficial for you down the road, still giving you that opportunity to reach for that income in retirement.
Thank you, Tom. In plan or out of plan, we would encourage you to continue to increase your plan by 1% increments if you'd like, or set up a auto escalator and continue to push those numbers up until you hit the IRS limits. Or, as Tom said, you could consider moving out of the plan for a number of reasons. Maybe you want a non-correlated asset that's not really set to the volatility of the market. Maybe you want to have some liquidity before retirement. You want to diversify just a little bit, or create some options for college investment or multi-generational wealth planning. Or, as I say, maybe you just want something for a side hustle. Maybe you have a little entrepreneurial spirit. When you lay down your head at night, you start dreaming about making this certain thing or something that you could provide, just like many entrepreneurs who we do retirement plan consulting for. And then finally, Voya it provides a link to a demo, both to their participant site as well as their mobile app, and we'll be providing a walkthrough for you on that as well. Give you an opportunity to enroll or to access your plan. If your plan's transitioned over and you have dollars in your current plan, that will move over to Voya automatically. So with that, once again, we want to thank you for your time. We're going to ask Holly to come up and kind of close this for us. Holly plays a very important role as our participant engagement coordinator. And Holly, why don't you talk a little bit about how they can book an appointment and how you can be utilized to help them more. We also want to thank you for staying tuned and being part of our audience today, and hope you learned something about retirement planning and the benefits for you.
Thank you, Jesse. So as your participant engagement coordinator, here's some reasons why you might want to reach out to us. Say you can't get logged into the website, or you're not sure how your 401k loan payments are going, or you just need help getting a beneficiary updated. We are the ones to call, and I'm probably going to be the first person that you contact. And all of our information is going to be in the description below. Feel free to reach out to us at any time.